Hello, Americans. There's a James Comey who was involved with remote uses of the Obama administration, the Biden administration, and the Trump administration through the people too, pretending blaming on the administrations alone, leaving out the guilt of everyone at the same time. You guys won't follow mandated law. You guys are forcing other things, others ourselves to blame, right where our founders and nature itself says there's a breaching method to blame. James Madison detailed how our founders wanted nothing to do with slavery. Yeah, in other words. And we weren't supposed to refer to any of our founders as a known founder besides James Madison. So when people would say, oh, America's founders owned slaves, you wouldn't be shocked and awe and say, oh, and try to defend them as collusion / us framing them. Then call them the framers. James Madison, the founders, plural, see president / chief, too, by the way, when with nature shows us, too. Nature's hyphenated pure and shows us that the only reason that Native Americans and citizens were in the same semi-ancient trap and what caused it was entrenched already there, too. We could observe how there was a torture, extortion, and slavery method, collusion / us having been forced. And then America's founders were born. We were supposed to understand this in our minds instantly and clear. Supposed to be fake sides of people attacking our founders and people defending them as collusion / us. Our founders are unknown, except for James Madison. The only one we know for certain was our founder. You guys won't even allow people to be honest about the extortion of George Washington as he asked. At the founding locations like in Old Weathersfield, Connecticut, at Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum, next to a witch child's place. And then and now they have description. They have the founding locations. They have other than James Madison's plan involved with descriptions. They have that which was forced to be spoken by them because everyone had to hide their actual motivations because it was against so many of the different laws at the same time. It was against the sense and sensibilities, to use Jane Austen's phrase, of overt criminal enterprises, of private ones, of terrorists, propagated originally and still, collusions with why there's a witch trials place next to Webb House / now called the Webb Stevens Museum. Other than now, self-value haven't been taught for it. A certain type of victim / hyper victim that forgiveness is relative for. One of the reasons forgiveness, where we're not supposed to give up too, where forgiveness / hyper non-forgiveness are. Two, they've already recorded the breaching method, showed them they made wrong decisions when they make mistakes, decisions, made the meaning of decisions what they don't mean. Where and how there were collusions there, not discerned, increasingly discerned but covered up. See, these things would have surfaced have everyone followed the nature of the law and understood why and how our founders, plural, directed us to understand why and how James Madison is the only one of them that had the security to let us know the name of specifically, to know for certain that was our founder. And he detailed how and why he wanted nothing to do with slavery. He wanted nothing to do with women's suffrage against the laws against women, on the records and off the records. And the differences of guilt of that or that is also used by this breaching method that was involved with every good thing and bad thing. And then America's founders were born. Already slavery was northern colony, southern colony, even slavery. Something overtly no one wanted collusion / us with. All exception nature, they're still using that to pretend, because the names of the people, the scientists were shown how to read them by the breaching method. They knew that then nature would show that, and it could show them that they could blame it on the kids, blame it on their families, or blame it on themselves, the other teachers, or the school. School is not even a real person. You guys can't follow mandated law. Sandy Hook campuses has worse than collusion/S, with more people involved with violence with the kids and with sexual and medical offenders of the kids, also with a prison there. There's some foreign and domestic people from Pakistan, people from Saudi Arabia, people from all the different countries, Italy, Germany, Korea, with the town lines too. People with the town lines have collusions putting fake things in databases behind my back. That's why I was never suspended. And they're putting fake ties, fake nature ties to me, people I don't know all, doing little tricks to pretend other. Increasingly, people with their differences, their religious differences, and black white. Collusions also with Washington, D.C., leading up to the World Trade Center, long term, short term, in it, and since. I warned them to fear Mike Pence, but he himself is still fearing. You guys were sickly to talk American history wrong. You guys already defended definitions of America where you have the founders as other than James Madison. And James Madison detailed with our founders why and how they had a plan to counter-extort people at key locations, and why and how James Madison is the only one of them we understand the name of. Even Judge Napolitano was affected by it since he was a kid, referring to Thomas Jefferson as our founders or as our framers. Our framers was the breaching method that only allowed collusion/S to an extent against women, all women, to an extent against all Native American tribes, sickly distinctly too, based on what the breaching method needed. And our founders, they forced, like even the North and South, they still had both of them roles with slavery. Everyone's changing what's actually recorded there. Then they're valuing the campuses, backing up books that have truths used for lies. It was the truth that people fought against taxes and things like T-tax and things like that for the American Revolution. But it was underlying. They wouldn't have done that. Plus, it was slavery entrenched. Our founders' plan forced everyone at the same exact time to make up different things at the same time, or it wouldn't have been worse. The breaching method knew people were going to do this. That's why they did the plan the way they did, and told us to refer to them plural as our plural founders, as unknown founders, and to understand why and how they had to force people to break an extent of the laws that were entrenched, and of the overt criminal enterprise, private ones off the record, things off the record too, and the fake news, only capable of being. Think about it. Think about what witch trials are. Do not separate those crazy laws against women, against Native, against things, pretending other with the theater. You guys don't know how to speak about the theater because you guys have self-violent collusion/S with the interbranch, and you have relative delusions with the experts on psychiatry. I'm not a doctor. They have relative delusions right through world wars. They have concentrated collusions with the law here or there, and with the prisons, collusions, criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, right where and how with difference/S. See, there is a different identity of sequence nature. That is not our species body of individual bodies. It is not the other species body of individual bodies. But it is showing us that each of the different distinct species bodies, they're also non-distinct. They have two eyes, they have two sexes. They have things that are being generated by what is neither us nor them, but while it is all things anyway, its way. The parts of itself, like the parts of yourself, they're all positive to that self at the same time. Or they're a demonstration of nature's system abridged. But nature's demonstrations of the abridgment of the Constitution from before it was. and since have been replaced, it's gotten away with by styles of logic, natures of logic, by nature itself forced to self-value. How the breaching method trained taught everyone to pretend our founders were anyone but James Madison, known as a known founder. When people said, "Oh, America's founders owned slaves," and then people get mad at that because the people who defend our founders also collude with it. They confirm it. Both sides of the thing and exceptions. Otherwise, that body is sensed. Even though that's with nature itself and our founders communicate. Both sides and exceptions are collusions, replacing what our founders and nature itself communicates about. Black pupils. The FBI is sick. They have wire mail crime acts and methods, digital crime methods, criminally foreign influence statute readings of statutes and precedents. The lawyers of Wethersfield Police and of FBI Director Robert Luskin and Robert Chevalier, they're involved with readings of statutes and precedents. They give them the benefit of the doubt at the last second. That's why on a mass scale, a whole bunch of people plant the evidence bring it before court. The courts are switching names and forging names, refusing to identify themselves legitimately. Even if it wasn't James Comey. James Comey has collusion/S with relative delusions and sequence shifts and wire crime acts and methods that whiting forensics has with the foreign and domestic military and FBI, CIA, with their syntax on Facebook too. Facebook with all sides of criminal and civil cases themselves with that too, in the crime scenes. And in the interbranch and foreign at the same time. They have collusion/S with the news too, with the same sequence shifts back, same relative delusions, the same relative uses of things just because they're published, just because all the campuses share self-value collusions with such, like pretending other than them having been unknown and directed to stay unknown, besides James Madison and why and how. We're supposed to understand clearer than day the breaching method that was entrenched, and why everyone's was measured and maintained an extent of syntactic collusions against everyone else. Otherwise, that body was sensed. They wanted to build the suburbs better and safer, and a better identity relationship to the ground and waters than now. I mean, then, and we still have some suburbs, houses that were built and scaled, designed to be a negative identity relationship to itself, to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And more people rely on means to turn negatives into positives, into criminal and insidious natures of positives, as collusion/that's with the breaching method. Entrenched before our founders were born. We became out of nowhere. You guys can't, you guys put physics before the value of physics. Even nature shows us it is most probable, it's indemonstrable. How physics was generated by an increasing value that came from before physics. Its identity of volume, that is gaining value. Its identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that then generated physics relative to itself. And we are shown this by nature itself because it has those three identities of possession equally over and as the value coming to, from, as, with, and for the smallest finite detail of any individual body, parts, or any groups, like or any species bodies. Nature shows us that has three distinct identities of relationship to itself that are increasingly simultaneously gaining value distinctly, but also non-distinctly. And they're simultaneously increasing the value of their difference to the other ones. For example, it shows us nature its body is distinctly hyper invisible but still discernible from how it is invisible but still discernible. And English was revealed to be taught this way. Other ancient languages were. But then the names of the human species body of individual bodies, and with the countries that could only be operated by locations, areas, and states, just like humanity. That unity forced, while simultaneously we are forced to be independent. We're shown how it projects unity and independence to be understood and communicated and taught. And their boxing is fought, but by the rules. But the rules have been abridged since some ancient time. So while I have failed to discern where and how, there is one way to fight where everyone wins, even those who lose. Otherwise, we sense, and even greater means are revealed. And what revealed means, if we discover it has criminal and citizen's quality aspects or nature to it. As long as we admit that, then we have even greater means. The ancients revealed, had nature show them. There is one way to reveal evolution's fruits, gifts, and means out of nowhere that are only increasing. We could do temporary things as a human species body better than free. And it would make lasting positive value nature progressions. And then we could discern how that works. Everyone on the same page at the same time. We could train the human species body of individual bodies. We are in a semi-ancient trap. We could blame that at the same time together. Imagine we were all kidnapped as a family, but only when it was not a family, we're a body. As a family, we're a system tactical terrier. A body being led by that which is the other species' bodies, do not us by any way. It's the one that's a functional being, hyper invisible but still discernible, distinctly from how it is invisible but still discernible. One of the ways it is hyper invisible but still discernible is by being an identity of volume that none other could make up without it demonstrating. But that breaching method made everyone rolls, making things up, and with nature's demonstrations of that also shown they need to keep those demonstrations blamed on the things of ourselves, even though those demonstrations also contain demonstration /s of a human fact treatment nature breaching method that nature itself and that our founders communicated about. James Madison detailed about how the breaching method was against every human difference. It was against women. It was against black people's whites of eyes. And it was all these things at once. So if anyone speaks about any part of that, about any part of that, or anything outside of the internationally monitored conversations, outside of the grasp of criminally foreign influence, criminal enterprises, overt criminal enterprises, private criminal enterprises, terrorists, fake news, collusions, sick religious bodies, only help too. What was capable of being that came through that with slavery entrenched? You think the schools and kids they're going to produce are bad now? How do you think the cities unfolded? You guys, you miss what it's like for the people inside the buildings in the background of rap videos. And when you try to speak about it, when even little kids in suburbs across the way, you think they love rap. Because we know the suburbs have quality aspects in nature that were involved with that breaching method that nature itself showed us when we were kids. And we're going to learn to speak about this the way we discern it. Because we have black people's whites of eyes. And we know that was inseparable from proper treatments of it. The other was pretend because everyone was abused by it to be only capable of speaking for it. Even our founders. See, the names of the people of science is using their knowledge of good and evil to pretend it's worth what it isn't, replacing why and how our founders, plural, directed us to understand they did not have free speech, and no one, even James Madison, had to leave declassified for us. About why the breaching method was entrenched with slavery since before they were born. Even slavery. Again, they couldn't speak about anything or they were sentenced and hurt and tortured, and everyone around them and worse. We are still in this trap. Everyone's still having to pretend they have free speech while they don't. It's recorded, but you guys don't follow mandated law. Even Judge Napolitano. Judge Napolitano got me off of fake conversations with WFSB. Their intelligence next to them also has collusions intercities and next to Fox Connecticut News. And they have collusions replacing, hiding, or faking what I typed to you while you were with Fox News distinctly from when you are not. They have collusions with the FBI, with Facebook, with the pages of the campuses, with sexual medical offenders of kids, and with the relative delusions of the FBI with worse than criminal incompetence, having left out black people's rights of eyes, and how it's relative to a predicate acts with fax delivery system method. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor, but I can delineate the delusion. Hartford Hospital has a bunch of people that fake conversations with me, with a Leahy, Brendan Leahy, more than one people named Brendan Leahy, apparently. Women in their family, I don't know other names. Generations of their family with Hartford Hospital, with a Leahy family, men and women, a Violet family. This is Hartford Hospital. They have collusions with UConn campuses and interstates. People involved with their campuses and all ages of their family members. The little daughter of one of the ones named of one of the Leahy families involved with drugs and medicines, crimes with the kids, fake transcripts through the mail, fake ties to the kids, and with the news at the same time, and with a whole bunch of other people and judges and prosecutors, personally and professionally collusions with them, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and people that they affected to make confessions on my street when I was a kid and now as an adult that were child abused by them. And these are people involved with the corrections officers and judicial branch offices with their roles with all natures of drugs and they're pretending medicines and framing people for uses of alcohol, trying to framing them, but putting little spots, like putting fake ties, fake natures ties to people, lying about what came first when they film things and pretend to be observing things or speaking about things legitimately. There's only three branches of government. The breach method had them criminally foreign influence at and next to campuses, and the difference of guilt there or conjuncted to it since before our founders were born. This came from before the religious messengers. One thing we know that was good about those times, the sciences were criminally foreign influence. This republic was revealed by an identity of sophistication that came before. England forgot their history. England doesn't even remember the history of English because they were being used remotely the same way we are too. Countries A through Z got them to blame other things, others themselves, while they were building roles with integrity the way the high performance showed them to speak for integrity. There was an officer Hunter with Central Connecticut State University. Not Hunter Biden, but they said his name was Officer Hunter. He's involved with FBI Director Robert Luskin and people with Central Connecticut State University, with a Dean Judd and with Dean Judd's kids, with people with the border states and border countries, involved also with the Saudi attackers through others, and with people tied to Gail King and the Gary Sasso and his neighbors and people involved with Lena's Pizza in Hartford, Connecticut, have collusions with people next to Hartford, next to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, with intelligence families, Increasingly, people involved with the suburb area have collusions with child offenders in my area. I might have seen in my car if you come to try to make a fake me tied to them. They put people in cars with other people. They trick them to be in a car and then pretend they know them. Then they change the fake with which recorded over phones, and they just fake phone conversations too. Fake people have conversations at the Weathersfield Police Station when they're kids and then as adults. Weathersfield Police fake conversations with me as a kid, now as an adult. Other kids they went there and faked them, made them paint themselves to fake ties to me, fake nature ties to me. Chris Walters and Ray Colosa has something to do with their collusions with people who themselves say it was at Trinity College and CCSU. Only Ray Colosa was next to Trinity College. He has collusions. They have collusions planting evidences there through time, and next to the state capitol, and 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike. I never saw Ray Colosa there, but I want a bunch of people tied to him, like a Joshua Schumack and a Mark Violet and others have been planting identity theft fraud. The time you're going to be there and take a picture of you, put fake ties to you, has something to do with their collusions with the names next to the state capitol through time. And their roles with all the ages and natures of investigators, remotely criminally foreign influence. Their collusions with multiple agencies next to Harper Hospital, involved with wire mail crimes, organized crimes, falsified news, collusions with identity theft, fraud, slanders. WFSB has roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, various natures of organized crimes, and abuses of each age and nature of fact-keeping nature, refusing to identify themselves, interbranch, and the sources of the agencies and of the networks, the differences of the guilt of the intelligence there and next to it. All this is relative to the breaching method's use of different/s and getting over on that different identity of sequence nature. That is not our species body, is not the other species bodies. We are distinct from them, we are not distinct from them, and we are simultaneous with them, but also further distinct identity of simultaneous nature, generating all things. Boxings. Harper Hospital said they have communicated they have federal evidences crime methods with their databases and with their syntax regarding people's names, with people tied to a Smith house. They didn't say that specifically, but they showed that guys involved with them switching and faking. They made a guy. They have people say things and they pretend the other person said it when you have no response, because these are people involved with behavior racketeering, worse than war crimes. As we step back and observe what's actually recorded, increasingly various natures of criminal enterprises and some lost Solito themed people are involved with Mazzucato Bakery and Modern Pastry with a John Maiano and with others on Facebook, with Weathersfield Police, with a Joshua Schumack and others. Like a John Maiano sought me out on my street to make confessions after his name had been repeated to me by a Paul Zano and a Ray Cololo, who I barely ever saw them. They were just real quick around themselves, and they would have Jew syntax. A Paul Zano has been putting fake ties, fake nature ties to me since I was a kid. With people, it was recorded, confessed, demonstrated. He's got roles with child abusers, using kids years apart, and people that are putting his educators, putting fake ties, fake nature ties between kids. Stephen Stockwell is one of the people involved with wire crimes with them, identity theft, fraud, slanders, with the state judicial branch offices, and campus with Central Connecticut State University in Britain, Connecticut, and Weathersfield campuses with people involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids. Only words I ever had to him in my life, I say, "Hello, is Maria there?" And he hung up the phone and he did a passion crime, calling Weathersfield Police, and to pretend I ever had a conversation with him before that. And in other words, he's got Maria Fazzino. I never saw her on a Weathersfield campus in my life. Increasingly, people tied to Maria Vazina and her neighbors have roles with some sexual and medical offenders of kids and people involved with untimely deaths years apart. Brian Bonin sought me out to make confessions. He has roles with mescaline and wire crimes with his neighbors and people involved with untimely deaths and body dumping spots years apart. And people with his educator. I never saw him on campus in my life. Brian Bonin. He has collusions with people all along Route 3 who have been planting evidences with Route 3 conjunctions to it and to that, interstates. These are also people with Rhode Island who have roles with my name and their syntax and tied to Enzo Fienza, involved with foreign and domestic intelligence and people involved with World Trade Center Predicate Act and their roles with the judicial branch offices and the corrections offices and, foreign and domestic and locations like they have the people with Milltown Avenue, the streets that have voices that are speaking in Wethersfield Public Television. They have the things blocked. So I wouldn't address them in that. But now that they have that blocked and those people speaking up, those locations have their sense and sensibilities played as people further involved with the proven child abusers, leaders, and kids, and repeating fake things in backgrounds and or phishing. Too, these are people increasingly putting fake things next to each of the campuses and building on that consciously. There's a Kevin Harris who's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with his mother, involved further with prosecutors and judges, people named Leahy and Brian Silver with New Britain Superior Court, also with people named Kerr and KNER. And then there are multiple Facebook pages after the World Trade Center attack as people involved with West Hartford locations and confessions and requests to help by Eric Burgess and people from Wethersfield involved with him with West Hartford locations and their roles with my neighbors, with a Brian and Cologne with various police departments and police forms and courts putting fake things in databases together with all sides of criminal and civil cases in the news at the same time, and overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and child abusers, leaders of kids with campuses. Get them on paper. Adele Farrell family, I never saw in my area. They're increasingly collusions with the same house/S and with other probate court families, judges, families too, that are intimately tied to them in other ways. There are all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slanders, and they hide life progressions on my street when I was a kid and I was an adult. And I can't get them on paper into branch. You got to get them onto paper into branch first.